Hey everybody, this is being recorded in post. The footage and audio at the intro here was a little bit subpar, so I'm recording this to kind of give you a brief intro to spare you some of the bad audio that you will experience between minute 1 and minute 2. This is an unboxing video for my new Radrunner Plus e-bike. Yes, I know that this is a low-T purchase. I bought it as a hedge against inflation and also the terrible parking and driving situation here in San Diego. Since I have a degree in economics, while I do the unboxing, I'm going to talk about inflation, deflation, and cryptocurrency. By the way, never ever ever trust an economist. Also, there is no perfect hedge against inflation because of how our system is organized, and there are other risks that we'll go over in this video. Without much ado, the first thing you will need is a knife. So I've got one of my small knives here. And I don't think there's a good way to do this. When I used to work at Best Buy years ago, there was a way that you could unlatch the bottom of a box and then let the TV out, but it doesn't look like this box was made that way. I already tried to pop these out. They're in there pretty good. This is a Radrunner Plus, by the way. So one of the things with inflation in general, if you're trying to hedge against it, is you want stuff that people think has value. And one of the things that doesn't have value when prices are going up by 10%, 20%, 100 or 1,000% per year are Babylonian magic squares. But what does have value is the ability to get from point A to point B. Usually the classic hedge is expensive precious metals like gold and silver. Or the new one is cryptocurrency. And a lot of people talk a lot about Bitcoin and all that stuff. One of the big things with currencies in general is you need them to inflate. And the problem with Bitcoin is that eventually it's going to stop inflating. That's a serious concern because when a currency stops deflating, the currency itself starts becoming valued more than the products themselves. What this does is it's something called liquidity. It eliminates market liquidity. And the reason why you want market liquidity is because you want people to trade. You want items to be exchanged in the most efficient way possible. When there's no liquidity, people start holding on to the currency and they stop trading actual items. And if they stop trading actual items, you're in a world of hurt. Because now some people in the economy won't get food, and it's just overall really bad. One of the weird things about the situation we're in right now is we are in an odd state where we are risking both hyperinflation and deflation at the same time. This seems really weird, but actually NPR covered the topic back in 2009-ish, and one of the peculiarities is the way that we debase our currency currently. There's two ways to debase your currency to create that little bit of inflation that you need. And one of them is by money printer go burr, which is what all the memes say. And then there's the way we actually do it. The way that money printer go burr works is pretty simple. You just have the money printer print a lot of money and your currency starts to inflate. As long as you stay within a specific range, that inflation will be manageable. Because usually economies grow somewhere between 1% and 5% per year. recessions exempted from that. So you can print that much every year, and the government has that just as a tax on the general population right off the top. The way that we do it, though, isn't with printing. The way that we do it is we allow the Federal Reserve to mint debt. There's advantages and disadvantages of this method. Number one, the advantage is that when debt is printed, you weaken your currency most of the time, but you don't necessarily inflate it, which helps with your trade balance. So if you weaken your currency, then everyone wants to buy your products, and your people don't want to import items. But we can't really do that. I heard Max Kaiser say in a passing comment that if you're the backbone currency, you have to always run a trade deficit so dollars leave your market. And again, this gets back to liquidity. You want your currency to be inflating on a global scale if you're running with the world backbone currency, which the US dollar is. So the US can't even really take advantage of the debt situation anymore. And we've been debasing our currency using debt for a very, very long time. And we have a lot of debt. So normally, like in 1980 or in 2006, when they see hyperinflation start to creep in, the Federal Reserve will automatically regulating things by putting the brakes on the economy, by raising the interest rates above the inflation rate by a substantial amount. In 2006, I think that they raised the overnight interest rate on Federal Reserve notes from something like 1.5% to 6%, and it put the brakes on the economy. One of the things that we learned from that debacle was that when you have a lot of debt in the economy and you take all those variable interest rate loans and you raise the interest rates on all of them, people start to default. And what happens when they default is deflation, which saps your liquidity. And again, when you sap your liquidity, people value the money, the currency, more than they value their products. Japan was one of the world's leading economies until deflation hit. When deflation hits, people starve. It's not pretty. And if that happens to the US dollar, a lot of people around the world are going to have a lot of huge issues. If that worst case scenario hits, this e-bike won't help me. So this is not financial advice. This is just general concepts. Now, in general, I think that they will, the powers that be, the people who run the Fed, the government, all that, I think that they will actually lean their risk towards hyperinflation and away from deflation because of how dangerous deflation is. But I also think that ever since Teddy Roosevelt, roughly, our leadership has gotten worse and worse and worse progressively over time. So I'm not 100% certain that we're not going to have deflation. If I was 100% certain that we would only hyperinflate, then I would organize things a little bit differently. This e-bike wouldn't be the only purchase I was making. All right. I should probably actually use a more sensible knife so I don't slash my own tires. Trying to get this thing to stand up so that I can actually show you what's included with the e-bike. Holy cow, they did this thing. with a lot of freaking zip ties. In general, this is a DIY channel, so I do wish to some degree that I had built my own e-bike. You can do that, and I do have a mountain bike. That is a generally good option for people who are on a little bit more of a budget. This Radrunner Plus here, holy cow, goes for about $1,800. The basic Radrunner goes for about $1,300, which is a more sensible option. I did want the front end suspension and the rear spokes and all that stuff. Gears, that's what they're called. Now, whenever you make a general purchase that's kind of larger like this, one of the things that you want to consider is how well will this item retain its value? And this is also important for a hedge against inflation, because if you have an item that you need to sell that's used, you want the items that are more in demand. One of the things about the Radrunner Plus is more people want it. The overall accessory package that comes with this thing costs like $700, and it comes for an additional $500. That's not even considering the items that this bike has that the regular Radrunner does not. Those items, of course, being the gears and the front end suspension. When I took this for a test drive at the dealership here in San Diego, I noticed that the front end suspension actually made this bike a little bit easier to handle. And that's why I went with this particular item. I'm not handling this knife very safely. Kids, always cut away from yourselves. Never point the blade towards yourself. And keep your knives sharp. Because dull knives tend to get stuck in stuff, and then when they snap free, they'll come back and cut you. I'll bring you down here to take a look at this in just a moment. So the Radrunner Plus comes with this nice brown handle for their items, and this is the throttle on right here. So back to liquidity. When you have liquidity, one of the other advantages that people have is that they can pay off their debts with devalued currency. And actually, that's one of the benefits of hyperinflation. And one of the things that they don't talk about a whole lot is that people who have huge amounts of debt, when there's hyperinflation, can actually get out. It's a huge opportunity. So, depending on what your asset level is at, hyperinflation might not be bad for you. So really, with hyperinflation, the only people who have anything to be concerned about are people who have a little bit of wealth to protect. People with a lot of wealth to protect are usually fine, because a lot of times where their wealth is located is in things like stocks and bonds and hard assets. And those items will adjust with the market. People with large amounts of debt are also helped by hyperinflation because they get to pay off their debts with devalued currency, and they can get out from under the banks, which is actually a really awesome thing. But the problem is that it levels the playing field not between the wealthy and the poor, but between the middle class and the poor. And it stratifies society into a two-class system where there's just only the haves and the have-nots. There's no creative intermediary step in between. It's one of the reasons why there's that famous video of Nicolas Maduro eating an empanada in front of his entire country of starving people who are under hyperinflation. Now that probably wouldn't happen here in a hyperinflation scenario, because the level of hyperinflation that we'd experience probably wouldn't be in the hundreds of percent per year. It'd probably be in the 10 to 20% per year would be my guess. Now, if we had something like 10 years of hyperinflation at 10%, that would almost wipe the slate clean. But it would require, at a certain point, money printer go burr, and then we would have to raise the overnight Fed rate again at the end. A lot of people talk about things like Bitcoin being the gold standard, and there's some truth to that in the short term. But one of the things that they don't talk about is that gold actually inflates. And it inflates in general on similar lines to what our technological progress is. So if you look at a long-term graph of gold, it inflates at a rate of about 1.4% per year. And maybe 1.6% per year. So if the economy is growing between 1 and 5% per year, using a gold standard would actually be slightly deflationary, which means it would slightly discourage commerce, which is an advantage of kind of a fiat system like the one that we have now, is you can set a currency to debase at a rate slightly higher than your general technological progress, which is great for commerce because no one wants to hold on to their dollars for a long term. They're not going to make money by just taking money and sitting on it, hoarding it like a dragon. Do not worry about the shipping on these things, man. They ship super well. Oh, that's a beautiful screen. Excited about that. So this is the upgraded LCD. Pull it down. So it's a full LCD screen, as opposed to the Radrunner. It just has a little keyboard that has some lights on it. The advantage of the LCD is that it will tell you what speed you're going. Since these things top out at about 20 miles an hour stock, or if you take off, like lower the limiter, it'll go up to about 24 miles per hour. The screen is really helpful to see, can I get any more juice out of this baby? And in general, I think it would be good to leave a little bit of extra juice on the throttle or on your pedal assist, just for the purposes of making sure that you can safely maneuver around situations. There's times where you need to brake to avoid accidents, and there's times where you need to accelerate to avoid accidents. All right, everything looks like it's pretty much out of the package, so I can show you everything that's in here. All right, so here are the items that come in the box for assembly. You have your fender mounting hardware, and this is for the front fender. That's for this. You have your pedals. These actually feel really substantial. They feel like metal. I don't remember what I read in the reviews, if they're metal or plastic. You have your owner's manual.
this looks like warranty information. I'm sure the owner's manual goes over how to assemble the thing. You get your enhanced front headlight, your battery charger, and your toolkit. So there's quite a few wrenches and a bunch of Allen wrenches in here. Charging cable, I missed that. And then these look like they mount the front handlebars onto this bike. This right here, this is for the front. It was actually zip tied to the unit. The battery comes attached. The rear pedal foot stands for a passenger. Those come attached. There's a plexiglass thing here. And the rear seat. That's kind of the expensive part. So yeah, that looks like everything that comes with the Radrunner Plus. I'm excited to get this thing fired up and get the battery charged, take it out for a spin. If you have any questions or you want to call me soy for getting an electronic bike, go ahead and do so down in the comments below. Thanks for stopping by. This is Nick, signing out.